For centuries, the Jedi and Sith have fought each other over power and dominance, and while the Jedi did it for peace and prosperity across the galaxy, the Sith wanted to create a powerful empire, and while many Sith did fail at this, there was one who succeeded and seemingly wiped out the Jedi without him even revealing himself to all of them. But how did Palpatine become a Sith, and what did he do to get to that position? Born in 84 BBY, Sheev Palpatine was the son of two rich Naboo politicians, and from a young age, Palpatine, or then known as Sheev, knew he was different than everyone else. He couldn't even relate to his own family, and he viewed himself as superior. He believed this was because he was far more intelligent than anyone else he knew. But despite knowing there was something different about him, something that made him superior, he couldn't find out what that was and just let the thought live in the back of his mind. Eventually, his studies would bore him and he would grow an interest to speed racing, too much to the disapproval of his father, and eventually would be forced to stop. And the reason his father forbade him for doing this was because he wanted his son to be a politician. But Palpatine saw how his father ran things and was disgusted by his father's reluctance to gain more power and become more involved in the political aspects of the galaxy. This is where Palpatine's hatred of his father began to blossom. From an early age, Sheev and his father never had a good relationship, and in fact, Palpatine's father even had his suspicions that the boy wasn't even his. And his hatred of his father grew the longer he saw him refuse to become more involved and refuse to gain more power and wealth for the Palpatine family. And seeing how low his father's ambitions were and how he was content with their current situation, as well as hating his father, he also hated his mother deeply for encouraging his father to not take on more influence. And from this point on, Palpatine started to plan out on how he could get rid of his parents. In fact, Palpatine was so ashamed and disappointed in his family that he gave up his birth name and refused to ever use it, instead chose to be referred to as just Palpatine. As Palpatine continued his studies, he would eventually learn about the Sith Empire, and it fascinated him beyond anything else. But while he may not have known about the Force, he was nevertheless interested in the Empire and how they controlled things. And after discovering that, he would use much of his family's wealth to buy more Sith artifacts. And the more he learned about them, the more he agreed with what they taught. To him in the text, power was the most important thing, and those who did not hold power or refused to use it should be completely wiped from the galaxy or should be forced to submit to those with power. And this obsession would lead him to dreaming about becoming a Sith Lord. And he would even discover that the Sith were in fact not extinct, a stark contrast for what everyone else was telling him. And soon he became so obsessed that he convinced himself that a Sith Lord would come for him on Naboo. And eventually that fantasy would become a reality as a moon politician named Hugo Damask, or Darth Plagueis, arrived on Naboo in search of a young man who helped him during a complication, who turned out to be Palpatine. But what truly shocked Plagueis was that he could not sense the boy through the Force, and in fact couldn't sense him at all. He tried to reach out to him via the Force to get a sense on who the boy was and what he wanted, but couldn't do it. And at first, Palpatine really didn't care for this politician named Hugo Damask. But after our conversation with him, Palpatine became very interested in him, and after finding out what Palpatine's true intentions were, that being those who have power must use it, Palpatine saw him as a perfect candidate for his rise to power. Due to him being a moon species and much prejudice surrounding that, he saw Palpatine as a human and his way to the top. And to try to connect to the boy, he would tell him that the only way he could rise to power was if he got rid of his family, and told him a story about how he did the same thing to his parents. And instead of pushing Palpatine away with this, he actually drew him in, and the two of them would grow close and form somewhat of a friendship. They became so close that Palpatine's father would find this out and warn Hugo Damask to stay away from Palpatine or else. And of course, they would not listen to him. And because of this, his father would see no other option than to send him off to a different school on a different planet. However, on the way, it would be revealed that Palpatine was helping Damask gather information on his father and their plans. And after his father told Palpatine that he should have killed him a long time ago, Palpatine would use the Force and throw his father across the room and kill him, much to the horror of his mother, and after that would kill his mother and the rest of his family on the ship. After realizing what he has done, he would contact Hugo Damask and beg him for help, and Plagueis promised to cover things up, and a week later, the two of them would meet and Plagueis would congratulate him on finally killing his family and getting rid of the chains that had bounded him. Except Palpatine would feel betrayed by him and was about to leave when Plagueis revealed to him that he was indeed a Sith Lord, and promised power to him in return that Palpatine would be his apprentice. Palpatine would be shocked by this and would ask him many questions in regards to the Jedi, the Sith, and the Force, in which Plagueis would gladly answer. And soon after that, Palpatine would accept his offer and would be given the name of Sidious, due to his heartless nature. And from then on, the two of them would work to slowly infiltrate the Senate and rise to power. And Palpatine would one day take an apprentice of his own, a young Dathomirian Zabrak boy named Maul, and seemingly without the knowledge of Plagueis. And soon, as the way the Sith is, Palpatine would kill his master and would take on the role of the Sith Master. And as that happened, he was also elected as Chancellor, thus sealing the fate of the galaxy. And that is the story of how Palpatine became a Sith and what his childhood looked like. Unfortunately though, this is Legends like many other amazing stories and most likely will not be canon. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like and subscribe as well as commenting your favorite fact about Palpatine. And with that, my fellow Star Wars nerds, may the Force be with you.